Craving the perfect holiday snack? Check out Farmer Bill's Biltong. Think beef jerky, but better. No sugar, no preservatives, just pure animal protein goodness. Crafted from premium grass-fed beef or bison and air-dried to perfection, Farmer Bill's Biltong is nutrient-packed, energy-dense, and perfect for an on-the-go treat or a standout snack for your next party. My favorite is the original bison, but the other flavors like the original beef, smokehouse, and spicy chili had me second-guessing that choice more than once. Visit FarmerBillsProvisions.com to grab a 1-pound slab or a variety pack and use code BIZBIT10 for 10% off. Farmer Bill's Biltong, don't be the 2-liter guy at this year's Christmas party. Welcome to the Business Bitcoinization Show, the show dedicated to helping you enrich your life and grow your business with Bitcoin, the hardest money on planet Earth. I'm your host, Josh Friedeman, and our guest today is Sani Abdul Jabbar, who heads up VezTek, which is a software development provider. And while we do talk a little bit about his business today, our main topic of conversation is one that is important to every single business leader interested in Bitcoin, which is how do we receive payments in Bitcoin? This will almost definitely not be the only time we talk about this topic, but today you're going to get Sani's thoughts, and we'll get to those right after this. Business owners, unlock the benefits Bitcoin has to offer your business with the Bitcoin for Business Quick Start Guide. This 27-page guide highlights the 6 ways you can grow your business with Bitcoin. Check it out in the show notes. Sani, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Glad to be here.
So I like to start off every single one of these interviews with a few questions. And the first one, just to give everyone an idea of where you're coming from, what your experience in this space is. The first question is, when and how did you first learn about Bitcoin?
So I first learned about Bitcoin around 2009, 2010. But first time I used Bitcoin was when I hired someone offshore, a virtual assistant type person in the early days of my business. And this person wanted to be paid his wages in Bitcoin. So, and the reason might have been he didn't have access to banking or something. So I went out and learned how to buy Bitcoin and how to transfer and use, and the early concept of crypto wallets and all that. So I bought some Bitcoin, and imagine 2010 or 11, that's when it happened. The price of Bitcoin, I had to pay only a few US dollars to buy a bunch of Bitcoins. And I paid this guy. Now, here's the funny part of the story. After paying him, I had some Bitcoins left over in my wallet. And the value of those Bitcoins was so low that I just let him sit there, didn't even worry about it. Years later, someone asked me if I knew about Bitcoin. And I said, yes, I know. And they said, have you ever used it? And it brought back to my memory that, yes, I've used it and I have some leftover Bitcoins. Now, the price had gone, imagine where it had gone from 2010, and the conversation took place in 2015, I think. It had gone, I think it was like around $700, $800 at that point, from probably $10 when I bought it. So whatever Bitcoins I had left over in my account, they had gone up. Funny part, I had forgotten my password, and I didn't even write it down. So I had to do some trial and error. Finally, I was able to find my password, and I was able to recover those leftover Bitcoins. So that was my first interaction with this.
The next question is this. What is the Bitcoin resource you most recommend to other people?
Well, look, so Bitcoin is a emerging tech. It falls under that umbrella. And emerging tech is what I do in my work at VezTek and my work in reading and writing and speaking and all that. There is no, I can't say that, read one book and you'll be an expert on Bitcoin. What I can say is consume content that's more like of a live nature. Your newsletters, your podcasts, books become outdated by the time they hit the market. So for resources, I would start, let me plug my own newsletter and podcast, Blockchain Brief. It's a weekly podcast. And my promise to you is that if you consume it once a week, it takes about 5 to 7 minutes. You'll stay up to date on what's going on in Bitcoin and the blockchain world overall. So that's that. This newsletter talks about cryptocurrency and Bitcoins, not just from the tech perspective, less actually from the tech perspective, more from the economy and business perspective. Because the issue is with emerging tech is that regulation is constantly changing, new laws are being formed. So what's true today may or may not be true tomorrow. So that's why I would say, use more live type content, podcasts and newsletters type stuff.
Now, we have talked about in your bio that you are in the broader blockchain space, and listeners will know from the name of the show that this is entirely a Bitcoin focused show. You're in this broader space as well. I'm curious, and this hopefully would go even beyond blockchain. Beyond Bitcoin, is there a tool or an idea that's recently been valuable to you and your business? Just an idea you've been playing with, thinking through, or enacting in your business that has been very helpful to you?
So a tool and an idea. The tool is, I came across this thing called Descript. People in the podcast world have known it for a long time. I just got introduced to it a few months ago, and it has made my life so much easier when it comes to audio and video editing. It's basically you edit audio and video by editing text, not actually going on the timeline and figuring out where it is. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm using it. So if you do anything with audio or video editing for any reason, Descript is a really good tool. Highly recommended. The idea, so I've been in the emerging tech world for a long time, about 20 years now. And I have always intuitively done this. I am working on a current technology, whatever current emerging tech is. At one point, it was as simple as websites back in the early 2000s. Then there were ERPs. Then there were your mobile applications, mobile platforms. Now it's blockchain. There's already other things on the horizon. So I was intuitively running projects in current technology and talking about it. Then I was keeping an eye on the horizon, and then intuitively I was looking at when is the right time, when is that golden moment, the golden opportunity when something that's a hype becomes a trend, and now it's worth going in as a business. Blockchain has been around since I think the 80s. Bitcoin has been around since 2009. But when did it become a trend? And at that point, you want to step in. That's the golden opportunity, right? So I've been doing that intuitively, but it wasn't until this year that I actually put it in a formula format, where I actually created a formula where I look at what's happening now, what's coming down the pike based on the conversations that take place at conferences that I attend and speak at, what's happening in the labs, what customers are asking for. So based on that, we know what's coming down the pike. And then the point where it becomes large enough trend, then now it's justified to put in resources to build your production and delivery muscle in that particular technology. The reason why I'm talking about it, I believe that this model applies to essentially any business. This model can be used in Bitcoin. It can be used in any other business, because if you're not innovating, if you're not thinking what's next, if you're not pivoting constantly, then you fall behind. And you cannot remain competitive. But there's a fine line between running after every new shiny object and actually investing resources in something that really matters. So emergence convergence formula that I had got trademarked this year is the first time after 20 years that I actually put it in a formula format, and I'm happy about it.
And if people are intrigued by that, where could they go to find out a little bit more about the emergence formula?
I have written a little bit about it online in Forbes and on our website and the blog, but I plan to start a series of articles within the next few weeks, and I'll be sharing that through Blockchain Brief.
And our final question, we call this our arbitrary but insightful question, is this. As a general life principle, is it better to ask why or why not?
Well, as a general life answer, it depends. When it comes to experiences, then as long as it's within certain confines of legal, moral, ethical, I'm always open to experiences. So my answer is why not? But when it comes to business and when it comes to advising others where to invest their energy and resources and financial resources, that's when why I start everything with why. We build digital products, and in the very first meeting that I attend with our investment partners or clients, my very first question is why? Why are we doing it? And I actually spend good amount of time on defining that why. Then we actually document it. Then we actually put it. Well, in the past, in the before times when we used to meet people in person and the our staff was at the office and we used to meet in these big boardrooms, I would have it printed and put on the wall. Now what I do during our online meetings, because we have gone fully virtual during the COVID days, I keep bringing up that why over and over. And when I feel that someone in the team or the whole team is sort of diverting from or change or kind of losing focus of their goal, I bring them back to the why. And that why helps us define where the money should go, where people should go. Even when a lot of negotiation happens between different stakeholders over which features to include in a platform or not. And it's the why that determines then. It becomes very helpful. So therefore, my answer to your question is why.
Perfect. Meet Linkster, your premier Bitcoin-focused advisor. Linkster caters to businesses, institutions, family offices, and high-net-worth individuals. They merge your unique financial goals and needs with Linkster's Bitcoin expertise to craft your own sustainable plan to preserve and grow the value of your hard-earned profits and retained earnings. At Linkster, it's not just advice, it's tailored execution. Connect directly with the founder by visiting linkster.com. That's LYNCSTER.com. Linkster. Secure your future with Bitcoin. Today's episode of Business Bitcoinization is proudly brought to you by Velis Commerce, where the future of business technology meets Bitcoin. As we journey through the era of Bitcoin and its transformational impact on businesses, there's one name that stands out: Velis Commerce. Whether you're looking to build a cutting-edge website, a seamless mobile app, or custom software, Velis is your go-to team. They've been diving deep into the world of Bitcoin since 2014, making them one of the most experienced groups for integrating Bitcoin and Lightning payments into a variety of digital platforms. But here's what truly sets them apart. Velis Commerce doesn't just build. They bring a wealth of knowledge to ensure your project's success from day one. Their team understands the nuances of Bitcoin, ensuring that your business stays ahead of the curve. And for all business Bitcoinization listeners out there, Velis Commerce is offering a free consultation to kickstart your project the right way. So if you're ready to future-proof your business in the coming age of hyper-Bitcoinization, head over to veliscommerce.com or reach out on Twitter at veliscommerce. Let's make sure your business thrives in the Bitcoin era. Well, I appreciate that. And more importantly than the answer itself, I appreciate the reasoning there. It helps to sharpen the ways that we think about things. So, Sani, when it comes to Bitcoin, I was trying to think of different people to ask on this show, and there are people who are going to be coming on the show for weeks and weeks. But when I first started reaching out to people, I thought, who do I know who's in this world? And we are in a mutual group on LinkedIn. You came to mind, and I reached out to you asking you about maybe some connections in this space, people who are specifically using Bitcoin, maybe Bitcoin businesses, or just business owners who are using Bitcoin in the day-to-day. And one of the things you said is, hey, we accept Bitcoin as payment. And so this is one of the most basic things when it comes to business. How can you receive payment? So thinking about adopting Bitcoin as payment is what I'd really like to talk to you about today. And maybe some of your other projects and things like that. But I think business owners, one of the basic things is, how do I receive Bitcoin into my business? So I'd love for you to just maybe share some of your thoughts on this, what you're doing right now, and some of the pros and cons around that thinking of payments in Bitcoin for business.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, that one of the variable in emergence convergence formula is when customers start asking for something. Now, I had been thinking about using Bitcoin for a while, but we did not start using it in our business until, and every now and then we would ask customers, would you be willing to pay in Bitcoin, because of the instantaneous nature of the payment. So that's a good thing about crypto payments. Somebody pays you in Bitcoin, you get the money right away. There is no wait for X number of days. There's no credit card fees, and there's no bank fees, essentially. And regardless where the customers are located, there's no bank-to-bank transfer, no bad checks, no chargebacks, like all that headache that we dealt with forever, and we thought that was reality. That all disappeared the moment we started using Bitcoin. And the way it happened, I had been thinking about it. We had been asking our customers, but the response from the customers for many years was, oh, it's more complicated. I have to learn how it works, so on and so forth. And at one point, a couple of years ago, a customer, when I asked him, he's like, oh, I thought you don't accept crypto payments. I was like, no, we do. We'd love to. And I said, well, you'll be our first customer then. And then after that, it was a simple matter of creating a setup for that transaction. Now, I had my own personal wallets before that. As I mentioned, I've been using Bitcoin since 2011. And this is advice for the business leaders who want to start accepting Bitcoin. They have to have their business wallet, business crypto wallet, not personal. And there's a reason for that. Taxation works differently, and there are other criteria that's different for business versus personal. So you could go to something as simple as Coinbase. I personally use Coinbase. The reason why I use Coinbase is it's on the SEC regulated, and they follow lots of SEC rules. There's a proper know your customer KYC process in place. The user experience is straightforward. Customer service is straightforward and very helpful. So that's what I started. When you use it for business, you don't want to use Coinbase, their standard service. They have a Coinbase Pro service. There's no cost to it. But Coinbase Pro provides you more data, more control, and fees. Coinbase Pro fees are actually much lesser, actually non-existent, I think, compared to Coinbase Regular. So you want to do that. And it's a very simple process. If you don't know how to do it, Google search how to convert a Coinbase account into Coinbase Pro. Takes a few minutes, not complicated at all. So once you have that account on Coinbase Pro, then what you do is you take, there's a QR code that you can send to your customer, or there's also a wallet address, which is a long string of alphanumeric characters. You send that to your customer sends money to that account. One thing that we do with every single payment, our payments tend to be larger amounts. Every single time, not with every new customer, I'm saying with every new transaction, we ask the customer to send us a small payment first. So instead of paying me, $100,000, send me $10 on that address to confirm that they have the correct address, because there's, I don't think we have the time right now to go into it, but there's a lot of hacking going on, and you wouldn't even know how those hacking and those viruses work. They sit dormant on your computer, and the moment you copy a wallet address, for example, that's when they change the address tiny bit such that the payment doesn't come to you, it goes to somebody else, right? And there are many other tricks around that. So to avoid all that, you ask for a very small payment. So once you have that payment and you confirm that you received the payment, then you ask the customer to make the full payment. Once the payment comes to you, then a couple of things you need to do. One, because Bitcoin's price fluctuates quite frequently, you need to think, do you want to keep that money in your crypto wallet, or do you want to move it immediately, withdraw it and move it to your bank account? And the reason for that is if you keep it in your crypto wallet, it's exposed to the risk of that fluctuation in the value of Bitcoin. You could look at it as investment if you want to keep it there and be aware of the risk that goes with investment. Price goes up and down. Or you can move it out to your fiat account, bank account. It's a one-click process, and you avoid that risk. Another possibility is you could keep it in your crypto wallet by converting your Bitcoin into a stable coin. So there's USDC coin, there's USDT coin, and there are a bunch of other. These are tethered coins, and their value doesn't fluctuate very much. By doing that, you're not moving your money constantly to your bank account. You're keeping it in your crypto wallet, but you can still avoid the risk of fluctuation that comes with Bitcoin. So that's another thing to think about. Then taxation rules I mentioned earlier, they're still emerging. If you're using Coinbase as your crypto wallet, Coinbase will provide you all the documentation necessary, and they also report to the IRS. They act almost in a similar fashion when it comes to taxation reporting. They're required to the same rules as a standard bank. So be aware of that. I'm sometimes asked, if I have income in my crypto account, do I need to still report it for my taxation? And I'm not a tax expert, but I can tell you from my personal experience, I believe I have to report every penny that comes into my crypto account and treat it just like any other income. Then the next thing is rules are constantly changing. Laws are constantly changing around Bitcoin and crypto payments. Be aware of those and talk to experts. So if you're, for example, if you're creating a new deal or if you're creating a new business model around Bitcoin, what I do every time we create a new business model, the first people that I talk to after users and understanding the pain point, Lawyers are the next people that I talk to, because rules are changing so constantly. You need to be aware of that. By using a mainstream platform, crypto platform such as Coinbase, you can avoid having to learn everything because they follow those rules and they are required to follow SEC's guidelines and other guidelines. So therefore, some of that burden gets off of your shoulder, and they become responsible. So these are some of the things. The payments itself is pretty straightforward. You need to create an account. You need to send your wallet address to the other person. That's it. It's as simple as that. Everything else is just to be aware of and just to protect yourself from different types of risks.
So a few questions come to mind, and hopefully you'll be able to answer these sort of quickly, although I'm sure there are a lot of considerations here. You mentioned larger payments, six-figure payments. Does it make sense to accept Bitcoin for smaller amounts? What is your thinking when it comes to these larger payments, using Bitcoin for those, as opposed to maybe something that is, 3 figures, 4 figures?
I really love Bitcoin for the fact that you can make payments in any size of transaction. You can make microtransactions. Bunch of the software that we build, there's some system of either incentivizing or penalizing people based on their activity. And I don't have to think in terms of round numbers. I can incentivize someone in 1,000th of a Bitcoin, or 1 millionth of a Bitcoin, so that you can go as many decimal points you can go. Having said that, from the transaction size perspective, I don't think there's a massive difference. The only thing that I find a little bit tricky in my own personal experience is the accounting side of it. So a transaction comes in. Most accounting platforms currently do not work with crypto platforms. So let's say, many small businesses, they use QuickBooks, for example. QuickBooks directly links with all your most major banks. Transaction comes in, automatically gets recorded in your QuickBooks. Your invoices get updated automatically. Your accountants know what to do with it. But when you receive a payment in a crypto wallet, now someone has to manually go in, look at that payment, understand which invoice this payment pertains to. And I'm assuming there's an invoice in the process, because not every business has invoices, right? Point of sale, for example, doesn't have invoices. So now you have to tie that payment with what you delivered, whether it's invoice or point of sale. And every time you have a transaction, you have to do that. And now if you're holding money in your crypto wallet, that Bitcoins that are coming in, their value changes. So when you received, let's say you had a transaction, for the ease of this conversation, you had a transaction of $100, you received $100, but the value changed and now it became $90 at the end of the month when you're closing your month. Are you going to count it as $90 or $100? We treat it, and this is the recommendation from SEC, to treat it, look at the value of at the time of the transaction. When the customer made the transaction, that's the value. After that, if the value goes up or down, you treat it as investment. So you have to deal with all that manually. As of right now, I'm not aware of any accounting platform that does it automatically. We actually have to keep a spreadsheet in my business to see what the value was when a customer made the transaction versus today or at the end of the month when we close.
Well, so the next question here is, you mentioned hacking and viruses. That freaks people out, understandably so, especially if you're going to be sending a large amount. That's why you said, always test by sending a smaller amount. But I'm curious, are there some ways that you can, is this basically just detected like regular viruses, or is this something that is a different beast that you're working with?
Well, both. One is social engineering, which has been around for a while. So means, I trick you into giving me your information. So that method is still being used. Then there are other hacking and spyware and viruses that are specifically designed for crypto. So one example that I used, this one malicious software, what it does is it installs itself on your computer, on your mobile device. It can come from, when you visit a website that's not safe, or if you received a document from somebody who had an infected computer and you open the document on your computer, and now your computer is infected, but it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. It will sit there until you copy, Control-C, Command-C, or right-click, copy a wallet address. A wallet address has its own nomenclature, its structure, so it can be identified, right? the software becomes activated the moment you copy a wallet address. And once it sees that you copied a wallet address, what it does is it will change few characters in the address. Now, wallet address is a very long string of characters. I think it's like 32 or something. Well, you're not going to sit there and compare every single character. No one does that. It's very hard. I mean, it's cumbersome, doable, but cumbersome. So what this virus would do, it would change few characters. And you send that address to your client client makes the payment, you never receive the payment. Right? Now, the client is going to say, I made the payment. You're going to say, I never received the payment. And now you get into a conflict because the client is right and you're right. You both are right. But how do you deal with this situation? We haven't figured out the solution yet. And luckily, thanks God, we haven't gotten into this situation yet. But that's one example of how this malicious software works.
So the next question is a matter of holding it on your balance sheet versus turning it into cash as soon as possible. You also mentioned some stablecoin possibilities, but how should people think about that? And maybe what do you think about it?
I can share with you what we do at VezTek. So what we do is, and we have always done it even before Bitcoin times, money comes in, we take portion of that, we put it in different investments. And the rest of the money goes into either, paying our operating cost or, other expenses and distribution to the owner. And that has been the model always. We continued that model in the Bitcoin era. Bitcoin comes in, let's say, you receive $100. I want to invest $10 into investment. So that $10 stays in Bitcoin, or if I want to change it to other cryptos as well to diversify the investment. So all the standard things that you do with any investment portfolio. And the rest of the money goes into fiat account and we apply it wherever it needs to be applied. That's the model that we are using. Some people, they don't want to do that. They don't want to take any risk. I've spoken with a few other business owners. What they do, they immediately transfer 100% of incoming Bitcoins into fiat to their bank account. Yet another couple of people that I've spoken with, what they do is they convert Bitcoin to something like USDC or USDT. Both are tethered stable coins for the reason they don't fluctuate much. So they would transfer to those coins and then leave them in the wallet. Because in some banks, they apply fees on the transaction. It's a per transaction kind of fee. So you don't want to transfer all the time. Instead, you want to transfer like less frequently, and therefore converting it into a stable coin and leaving it in the wallet. Another reason why you would want to leave it in the wallet is if you are into crypto investing or Bitcoin investing, you want to keep your money in your crypto wallet. So when the prices go down, you're ready to quickly buy, because if you try to transfer money from a bank account to your crypto account, that can take some time and you might lose the opportunity. So that's another reason why somebody would want to hold their crypto in their crypto wallet, but not necessarily in Bitcoin, to avoid some of that risk.
Now, between when we scheduled this interview and when we're recording now, in between that time, there was the Bitcoin 2022 conference. And I don't know, are you familiar with Jack Mallers' King's Gambit announcement? Did you happen to see any of that or keep up with what he's doing at Strike by any chance?
I think I saw something, don't remember the details.
So, I don't mean to put you on the spot, so forgive me for that. That wasn't my intention. But one of the things he shared is, so Strike helps to convert very quickly Bitcoin into dollars. And one of the things he just announced is, I just wrote this down just because I wanted to make sure I got it right. For the point of sale provider, NCR, they have a bunch of different companies they work with, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Home Depot, et cetera, and Shopify. And then also there's a payments firm I've never heard of before called Blackhawk, which might just show my ignorance, but they've partnered with them to, if I understand correctly, pay from dollars that would be turned into Bitcoin and then immediately turned into dollars for the company. So you would pay in dollars. It would be settled on Bitcoin, final settlement like you were talking about earlier, and then they would receive it in dollars. So I just think that's an interesting development. This happened just recently. I don't know much about it, as you can probably tell, but does it raise any flags in your mind as far as from a business perspective, or does it sound like something that business owners could potentially use, assuming that I've actually described it correctly?
So I'm very familiar with NCR's business model. We actually use them in one of our projects back in 2018, I think. The model that you described, it's a well-known model. I'm very familiar with it because we are building that kind of model in some of our current projects as well. Now, going back to your question about why, right? So my question would be, why would you want to do that? Settlement in Bitcoin. There are scenarios where that makes sense. And one example that two examples actually that we are currently dealing with. One, we just finished a product, a platform, and that platform, it's an auction platform for a controlled pharmaceutical raw material. So it's a raw material for the pharmaceutical industry, but it's controlled and federally regulated. And on the federal level, it is treated as a drug. On the states level, it is not. So there are certain states who are buying and selling this raw material to the pharmaceutical companies. So we needed to create a auction platform where pharmaceutical companies and their agents, they can go and buy this product, and the producers, they can sell the product, but they cannot use banking infrastructure because of the federal limits on it, US federal limits on it. So what we did, we said, okay, we can create all this system on the blockchain. We take money from the buyers, the pharmaceutical company, in USD. We convert them to Bitcoin or something similar. And then on the seller side, we convert it back to fiat currency, and we pay it to the seller. And these are very large transactions. We're talking about, it's a wholesale platform for the wholesale market. So we're talking about, truckloads of product and equivalent amount of money. So in that case, there is a good reason why we want to do it. Another reason why we would want to do it is we're working with a client. They're building a very large commercial project outside the U.S. I'm trying to think what I can say and what I cannot say because it's an ongoing project right now. And they want investments from the U.S. But if you try to do U.S. dollar investment because of the current world situation, it's difficult to move money and takes time and there's cost involved. So what we did, we said, what if we take cash here, turn that into crypto, move it over, turn that into cash, pay it to the vendors offshore. And that's a commercial development project for a very large project. So those are the situations where, sorry, I can't go into too much detail because these are all, yeah. So those are the situations where there's a good why available to us, why we would want to convert from one to the other. But if you're like doing business in the US, for example, I'm thinking like, I have clients who are willing to pay me in Bitcoin. They want to pay in Bitcoin. I don't see a reason for all that back and forth other than it becomes more, if you had a platform that handles all that conversion and back and forth, and you could provide it as through NCR type service for point of sale, then yes, it becomes more streamlined. And you could probably bring down some of the operating costs that goes with using the banking and credit cards infrastructure. But that's my opinion on this tech. We are using it in specific use cases though.
That's interesting to hear. And I think that's the idea. The merchants are saving, 2 or 3% on all their transactions, which can be valuable. They have to begin incentivizing the customer to begin using the technology, though, because it doesn't necessarily save them any money up front. I'm obviously out of my depth at this point in time. I appreciate you today talking about payments, getting us introduced to the topic. I'm sure we'll be having more conversations with other people in the future about payments. But Sani, you kicked us off on this. I appreciate it. Before we finish up today, where can people go to find out more about you and the work that you're doing in any number of areas, including maybe even your book? We didn't get a chance to talk about that today at all.
So the best way to keep in touch with me and the work that I'm doing and the writings and all that, my LinkedIn profile, and it's linkedin.com/Sani, SANI.
Perfect. All right. Sani, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, friends, it's a wrap. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Business Bitcoinization Show. If you want to reach out, our email is info@bizbitshow.com. Also, if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and scroll on down to the show notes. There you'll find ways to connect with me and our guest, as well as our excellent sponsors who can help you succeed in your life and in your business. Keep building, keep growing, and until next time, keep living and leading well. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, thank you. If you want to take a further step in your support for the show, you can help us grow by listening on Fountain, a value-for-value podcast app on iOS or Android. If you hear something you like that you disagree with or anything else, you can share it by sending some sats and adding a comment with your thoughts. Some of you have already done this, and I appreciate it. I'm going to begin reading your boosts on upcoming episodes, so if you have some insight or value to add, let the people know. Getting started with Fountain is easy. You can add Bitcoin to your Fountain wallet by using your fiat accounts or any Lightning wallet. And one of my favorite features is that once you're using the app, you can earn sats just by listening on Fountain. Check out the link in the show notes to get started with Fountain today.